What? Erica? You're Breen?
Spoiler warning. Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 5, Mirrors, reveals a raft of new details about the Breen from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The Breen are the latest DS9 aliens to appear in Discovery, making their proper return in the flashback sequences that fill viewers in on the backstory of Moll and L'ak. Written by Johanna and Carlos Cisco, and directed by Jen McGowan, Mirrors finds Moll and L'ak stranded in interdimensional space with Captain Michael Burnham and Cleveland Booker. In Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 5, the four treasure hunters are forced to work together, which presents an opportunity to learn more about Moll and L'ak's motivations. The episode's shocking revelation that L'ak is actually Breen is the first of many revelations about the mysterious Star Trek Deep Space Nine aliens. The flashbacks to Moll and L'ak's blossoming romance shed light on a number of aspects of Breen culture in the 32nd century, including just what's underneath those helmets. Subscribe to Movie Spy for more twist videos. L'ak is a Breen, however. He doesn't seem like a typical Breen. In an attempt to reason with Moll and L'ak, Burnham and Book learn that the couple is attempting to elude an Eriga, a blood reward on Breen. Burnham can now be certain that L'ak is a Breen, even without the refrigeration suit and helmet. L'ak was related to the Breen royal line, although he didn't fit the mold, according to the flashbacks showing how Moll and L'ak first met. After being stripped of his royal responsibilities, L'ak was put on shuttle bay duty, where he got to know Moll and fell in love. Lieutenant Commander Worf once said in Star Trek Deep Space Nine that no one had ever seen a Breen without a helmet and survived to tell the story. This is something that half of the Star Trek Discovery Season 5 ensemble has accomplished thanks to the disclosures on L'ak's origins. L'ak stands out among his species because, as the flashbacks demonstrate, the Breen are still highly secretive about revealing their faces. Moll was the one who sold the Breen Imperium dilithium.it, was her source of income during the burn. Moll gave the Breen dilithium to utilize in their starships during the period of shortage that followed the burn. But Moll was reducing her dilithium supply with impurities, which meant that Breen's supply had been significantly reduced. When L'ak confronted Moll about this, he offered to partner with the mold-breaking Breen to ensure that everything went according to plan. L'ak consented, in part because he wanted to exact revenge for being demoted, and in part because he was instantly drawn to Moll. When Moll and L'ak's swindle was eventually discovered, they were sentenced to death. But L'ak turned on his own people because he couldn't bring himself to kill the lady he loved. The Breen responded by placing a blood bounty known as an Eriga on L'ak, which would never be removed. Moll and L'ak were not sure that Burnham and Booker could actually aid in the Eriga's eradication, even though they provided the Federation security from the Breen. Moll and L'ak were given a blood bounty by the Breen. Can they erase an Eriga? They asked. Moll refused to leave L'ak's side even after the Eriga was placed on him. As a result, the Breen blood reward was placed on both of them. Booker's judgment that the couple was enjoying themselves and doing cliff-edge stuff makes sense now. The fact that Moll and L'ak are running for their lives in Star Trek Discovery Season 5 is probably what motivates them to have such a carefree attitude thus far. Because of their unwavering devotion to one another, Moll and L'ak assure Burnham that they would rather die than be parted from Moll in a Federation jail. During the Breen species' several appearances in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, one part of their culture that was not before acknowledged was that of Erigas. Therefore, it's unclear how one goes about collecting a blood bounty, but the mere utterance of the name seems to unnerve Moll, L'ak, Burnham, and Book. Since Eriga is the title of Star Trek Discovery's 5th season Episode 7, it is likely to include further details about the blood reward put on Moll and L'ak's heads and the parties trying to claim it. Quite comfortable is how DS9’s Weyoun described the atmosphere in Breen. According to Star Trek Deep Space, there have long been rumors that the Breen resided in extremely cold climates. 9 characters refer to their planet as a frigid wasteland, including Ghoul Dukat, Mark Alimo, and Quark, Armin Shimerman. Moll is in Breen territory and doesn't require protective equipment to withstand the cold, even though she doesn't visit the Breen homeworld in Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 5. Thus, this validates a statement made by Weyoun, Jeffrey Combs, in The Changing Face of Evil, Episode 20 of DS9, Season 7. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the Breen were a formidable ally of the Dominion during the latter phases of their conflict with the Federation alliance. Weyoun Weyoun observed that the climate on Breen was quite comfortable following the signing of the agreement between the Breen and the Dominion. There was always the chance that Weyoun was being wryly sarcastic, but the atmosphere within the massive Imperium spaceport in Star Trek Discovery seems to corroborate Weyoun's measurement of the temperature on Breen. L'ak's uncle is the Breen Primarch, who belongs to the Yod Thought royal caste. In the 800 years since the conclusion of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the Breen Confederacy has evolved into the Breen Imperium, as revealed in Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 1, Red Directive. Other than the fact that Thought Gore, Todd Slayton, oversaw the discussions with the Dominion, little was known about the inner workings of the Breen Confederacy in DS9. The Yod Thought royal caste, who ruled the Breen Imperium in the 32nd century, may have ancestors who were Breen from Star Trek Discovery. In Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Primarch Rune, Tony Nappa, who is L'ak's uncle, is one of the main players in the Breen Imperium. L'ak's friendship with Moll and his insistence on concealing his heritage have offended the Primarch. While fleeing with Moll, L'ak refrained from killing his uncle, which suggests that Primarch Rune might make a cameo later in Discovery Season 5, particularly if Moll and L'ak start negotiating with the Breen Imperium to give them access to the potent technology of the progenitors. In a different future, the Federation is destroyed by the Breen Imperium. The progenitors' technology must not fall into their wrong hands. In a universe in which the USS Discovery never managed to combat the temporal bug, the Breen obtained control of the progenitors' technology, as shown in Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 4, Face the Strange. Left over from the temporal wars, the Krenim chronophage was intended to keep Discovery out of the treasure hunt until Moll and L'ak could obtain the technology of the progenitors. In a stunning sequence from Discovery Season 5, Episode 4, the Breen Imperium then utilized the progenitors' talents to wipe out the whole Federation. In the first scene of Mirrors, the 5th episode of Star Trek Discovery, Burnham and Commander Raynor, Callum Keith Rennie, discuss the importance of their mission. Moll and L'ak are still adamant about using the progenitors' technology to negotiate for their lives with the Breen Imperium, as Mirrors has disclosed. More than ever, Moll and L'ak are desperate as they flee the ISS Enterprise at the end of Mirrors, lending credence to the dire future that awaits Discovery. At minimum, the Breen should bleed or leak. In the episode In Purgatory's Shadow of Season 5 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Dr. Julian Bashir, Alexander Siddig, asserts with confidence that the Breen lack a liquid circulatory system. Blood tests are being carried out at the Dominion prison camp to identify changeling spies. According to Bashir, all inmates save for the Breen prisoner have undergone the tests as they lack blood. This isn't the case, as Star Trek Discovery seems to show when L'ak cuts himself on his own knife during the battle with Burnham. There are several possibilities for the paradox, given the information that Star Trek Discovery's 5th episode revealed regarding the physiology of the Breens. First of all, the Breen are a highly secretive race that the Federation knew very little about in the 24th century. Therefore, it's possible that the Breen prisoner in Star Trek Deep Space Nine was only telling Bashir lies about not having any blood. The alternative theory is that L'ak is leaking the gelatinous organic stuff that makes up a Breen body instead of bleeding. The two faces of the Breen two faces, one translucent, one solid, are both green. What the Breen hide under their helmets is the most significant revelation about them in Star Trek Discovery. A Breen is described as having two faces, a solid, firmly humanoid face and a translucent, gelatinous face. Discovery doesn't go into much detail on the causes behind the Breen people's dual faces because this discovery is presented as though the audience already knew this information. L'ak is informed by Primarch Rune that the Breen have transcended their solid bodies and that their transparent shape is an indication of power. Star Trek Discovery doesn't explain how the Breen's armor keeps them in their translucent or non-translucent forms. However, it's a plausible science fiction theory that the Breen's more delicate and fragile face possesses greater strength than its hard shell. Perhaps more research on this topic will be provided in Discovery Season 5. The fact that both faces are distinctly humanoid, however, strongly suggests that they might possibly be descended from the progenitors. As Season 5 of Star Trek Discovery progresses, it remains to be seen if this information will result in harmony between the Breen and the Federation.